Definitely our next topic is relationships with others. So friendships, and especially how do we keep a healthy relationship, or when do we let go of a toxic one?
Yeah. All right, here's a few ideas. The first thing to understand is the key to having healthy relationships is to be healthy yourself. And so we go back to the center here of understanding who God is and becoming more like Him, dealing with our stuff, knowing why I do what I do. So the more I know of that, the healthier I am.
So once we can somewhat sit on that stool, then we can start.
Then they're better
inviting people to
prepared for an intimate relationship, whether it be a friendship or a romantic relationship. But until then, we're going to be a hot mess, and we're going to make a hot mess of our relationships, right?
Can I mention one thing
Yeah.
that I've experienced in my life?
Yeah.
Is one thing that I've experienced is that I keep, if I don't deal with those things, if I'm not aware of them, when I look back, I see that I keep making the same mistakes in friendships and relationships. It keeps going in cycles.
You've seen the same pattern in the Bible, by the way. You see Abraham lying about his wife being my sister, and he did that more than once, and then his son Isaac did the same thing. It's generational, and we repeat the same cycles, same stupid stuff. Wow. All right, so you're about as human as anybody else. You're about as human as Abraham was.
I received that.
About as human as I am, all right? So we start there. Then especially when it comes to close friendships, intimate relationships, I encourage you to really cognitively make out a list of non-negotiables. These are the things that I want in my closest relationships. I'm going to have a lot of friendships. I'm going to be friends with everybody. But in those that are really become close relationships, the intimate relationships and the BFFs, right?
Sure.
There's a kind
You
of
don't know what BFF means? I'm pretty sure it means something about beef, but I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. It's best friends forever.
That's a 68-year-old man trying to use a term. All right? So, I'm sorry, but obviously, best friends
Again,
forever.
going back to we don't have to show his age.
Yeah.
He's doing this himself.
He owns it very well.
Yeah. I'm owning it, yeah. So I need a checklist. What are my non-negotiables? If I'm going to open up my life to someone, truly an intimate relationship, and intimate means more than just sexual or that sort of, we're talking about knowing and being known.
Yeah.
A
Something
close
that's
relationship.
just not surface.
Right. If I'm going to have that kind of relationship, what are my non-negotiables? And then you need to identify healthy things and unhealthy things. And so if this person is controlling and abusive, this is not a person who's really a prime candidate for an intimate relationship with me. If this person holds values that are uniquely different than mine, then I can be friends. But this may not be a close, intimate relationship. I want to be kind and friendly to everyone.
Yeah.
But this is not a person for a close, intimate relationship. Make sense?
Okay.
So your list of non-negotiables, and when you discover they don't possess one of these non-negotiables over here, or they do possess one of these non-negotiables, all right, then intimate friendship is off the table, and I will distance to a regular friendship unless they're so toxic I cannot even engage in relationship. Then I set a boundary.
Yes.
I wanted to pause here for a second and ask Leo or Shadia, I know Leo, you mentioned maybe there was an experience or something, because I love that concept, Pastor Mike. So taking looking again, starting within, which is what am I looking for, and then what is I'm trying to avoid. Is there an experience maybe that you guys have been through?
Got a lot. My whole life.
either doing this well, right, or doing this well, and then finding a way, or maybe, and of course, keeping it general, but just to make it real for everyone listening.
No names.
Right, yeah, no.
Dang it. This was my time to expose.
I was going to expose that.
No names, no addresses, no phone numbers, right here.
Yeah, just in case.
Text me if you want their name.
If you want the tea.
Post it in the comment. No.
I kind of did have a relationship. It was a friendship in high school. We're still friends now, but in high school, I felt I had a group of friends, right? And I felt like I was in the position where I was giving all of my time. I was giving them so much, and I wasn't receiving anything. I felt like I was always wanting to talk to them, and they were always busy. I was always wanting to hang out, and then, you know, something happened or they just didn't want to. And in my head, I was thinking, like, wow, these people are toxic, you know, like they don't want to be. I know that's a strong word. That's where my little high school brain just straight up said toxic. Yeah. Oh, don't talk to them. But it became more of like like keeping tabs on them. Like I was kind of
keeping score.
Yeah. It was about, I started thinking about those times where they weren't giving me anything at all. Like it was more like, I said it better yesterday. I'm trying to think of how to say it. Where it was like a transaction where I kept keeping score of how many times they did me wrong.
Yeah. And how many times you used the credit card.
Yeah, and until I couldn't use a credit card anymore.
Yeah.
Until I started weighing the negatives more than the positives, and then I felt like I started holding some resentment towards that.
Yeah. I remember you said that you learned something through that process.
Yeah, I felt like instead of them being the toxic person, I felt like I became the toxic person.
Because you were keeping score.
I was keeping score on them, and in the process, I was becoming angry at them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really much of a friendship anymore. It was more of like, how much can you give me type thing.
But to come to that kind of an insight about that experience for you, obviously we can't change other people. You know, we can say, all right, this feels this way, this feels that way with them. But what you can change is you. And you learned something very important about yourself, is that you had the tendency, at least in that relationship, to keep score. And that's never a good way to do a relationship, is it? Now, it's also on the other side of this, if indeed you were giving and never getting anything in return, then all right, this is not a healthy relationship. So it may be time to set a boundary. You know, to change the nature of the relationship and still be friendly, but I'm not going to invest as much in this because it doesn't seem like it's a fair exchange. And there are going to be some relationships in your life that are like that all the time. Where you're going to give more than you get. And that's okay to be in those relationships as long as it doesn't be all-consuming and robs you of the opportunity to be with someone else. We all have a responsibility to help people. And so you're going to be there. Now, the other side of that coin is that some people find their self-worth in giving, and so they become codependent because they're a rescuer. Makes sense? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And here's a little self-revelation.
Know that all too well.
Everyone who's in a helping profession, especially people like counselors, pastors, teachers at times, even some healthcare people, have the tendency to be rescuers. We want to fix people, we want to help people. Ding, 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 ding. And so I can let a relationship, even a counseling relationship, go on too long without having the appropriate boundaries if I'm not careful. And sometimes an outside voice like my wife saying, that's not healthy, is an important voice to listen to.
Yeah.
All right, so new boundaries need to be set, and if the boundaries are not observed, then maybe I need to distance myself from this relationship. So you can go either side of this, right? But the overall idea of keeping score for the relationship is an unhealthy pattern.
Yeah.
And so knowing that about yourself, even a high school kid who said, wow, maybe I'm toxic, that's a keen insight for someone who's very young. So kudos.
Yeah, and it was kind of hard, like, making friends with other people, because I did go to DCA and there were like 5 people in my class.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like I had to keep those people in my life.
Of course.
But I feel like from then we've grown a lot, and we've definitely changed, both of us. We've become, and I feel like that kind of made us a little bit stronger, is kind of overcoming that.
That's the cool thing, is that people can change. And so someone that may be toxic at one point, or at least not healthy, toxic is a tough word, you know, but it's not it's not a healthy relationship. We can outgrow that. Sometimes we learn and we become more like Jesus, and we just mature with life. Now they're someone that I can hang out with and have a good friendship with. And I found that true. I had a high school reunion not long, in fact, just before COVID. You know, before COVID and after COVID. But just before COVID, there was a high school reunion. And I got to connect with people. And again, I graduated high school in 1970. So you weren't even a twinkle in your daddy's eye in 1970, right? 1970, I graduated from high school. And so some of the people I bumped back into, I realized I didn't like them in high school, but they're really cool. This is a nice person, you know? And so I realized that I had changed and they had changed, and so this does happen.
Yeah.
But to come to that insight in your life at that age, saying this is not healthy, I need to break this, and maybe I'm the one who's not healthy now. That's keen.
I want to go back to some of the things that you were saying before. So you were starting with some of the principles, or I love how practical that is.
Yeah.
Because it hits home. We're all in relationships.
Yeah.
Again, family, ourselves, others. So you mentioned creating that list. So that sounds like a front end activity.
Yeah, it is.
So
It is.
knowing what we're looking for. What's something else that you recommend?
I think, again, to have healthy relationships, we start off with understanding who God is and developing that. From that, we work on self. And from there, we find people of like mind. With shared values, shared goals, people who have done some self-exploration, or maybe are at least interested in doing this so that we can be healthy. So if I find someone who has the same values as me, this is someone who's more likely to be a good intimate relationship, whether it be a friendship, dating relationship, or something of that nature. Finding people who have done that work themselves and have had a level of maturity is a healthy way to do life now. All right? So I need to surround myself with more of them. It doesn't mean that I exclude anyone else, because I have an obligation to them. These are children who need to know Jesus Christ. So I have an obligation to be friendly and to give of myself to them, but I recognize there are kind of three different kinds of people in the world. There are the givers, the people who you always feel energized when you're with them, right? They just add to your life. That's one kind. Then there's a second kind of person. There's this kind of the neutral. They don't really affect you positively or negatively. Then there's the third kind, which are the life force vacuums. They suck.
Yes.
They suck the marrow right out of your bones because they're needy and you have to give. All right, we have a responsibility to life force vacuums. But if you spend too much time with life force vacuums without setting boundaries, you die. You have nothing.
You have no more life.
No.
And the neutral people are fine. That's fine. You can take or leave, and they can take or leave you if you're neutral to them. But you need to spend more time with the Energizer bunnies, over here, who give you, and they give and they give. And so that when you are with the life force vacuums, you've got a place to recharge as you learn to recharge them.
Wow.
So you
it's
become
both
that.
ways.
You need to be that positive person who recharges them, and they become the positive person who recharges you. So that when you do come across the neutrals and the life force vacuums, you can survive this and be a blessing to them with proper boundaries. So looking for those people with the same goals, the ideas, the values, who are on the same journey of self-discovery and maturity and growth. That's the kind of people you want to spend more time with.
Yes.
So that you have something to give somebody else.
I know that really relates with me, or with what I've experienced going to grad school and meeting some like-minded people.
Absolutely.
That have the same goals, or that, and for me, I was really young. I would always find myself in classrooms where people would raise like, "Hey, are you in a millennial?" And I couldn't raise my hand. Are you Gen X? No, baby boomer. And I was like, I was only Gen Z.
Gen Z
in there. So they're all like my older brothers.
Yeah.
But we get together, and for me, it just gives me so much life because I see in each of them healthy characteristics, and I found that over time, I was changing just a little bit at a time. But I was like, oh, I like how I'm changing.
Right.
Versus other seasons of my life where it's like, oh, I don't like how I'm changing based on who I'm hanging out with.
Yeah. And again, that's why your parents were always interested in who you were hanging out with when you were in elementary school and a teenager in high school. They wanted that force to be a positive force for you, because we tend to drift to become like the people we hang out with. Unless you're really self-aware and able to set the boundaries. We become like these people. And so finding people of like mind who have the similar values and similar goals, and who may be further along that path than you. And by the way, personal growth is not just merely a function of age. Because young people can be further along this road than someone who's older. So it's not just a function of age. It's a function of concerted effort, of a plan, of a determination, and a willingness to learn from others. There are a lot of functions, a lot of factors that help determine your personal growth. And if you grow up in a home that is really dysfunctional, you start kind of behind the starting line.
Sure.
You know, you got a longer way to run. And if you start with a healthy home, then all right, you're closer to the starting line. And if you make the determination early in life, all right, I want to do this work, I want to be a better me, then starting that work earlier from a better vantage point gives you a head start. So, that's just the fact of life. Life isn't fair. Again, I told you the story about my wife, Gail, who had the sermon, Fair is for 5-year-olds. By the time 5 years old is the last time you really have the right to say life isn't fair. After that, you should be over that.
Sure.
Right, you're right. It's not fair. Some people are taller and better looking and smarter than you, and some people have advantages, I'm sorry, but life is not fair.
Taller part.
So get over it and take what you've got and grow from here. That's the key, is grow from here. This is where you are. So now take stock and grow from here. It's not just a function of age. It's a function of your willingness to grow and sometimes where you start.
That is so hope inspiring.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing you say is that it doesn't matter whether you're young and you've had disadvantages,
right,
or whether you're older and you have regrets.
Yeah.
But you can always start where you are, and it's not limited by time.
Exactly.
It's limited by intentionality and willingness.
As long as there's life, there's a potential for growth.
Wow.
And growth is what produces healthy people. Never stop growing. When you stop growing, you've already died. You're done. But as long as you continue to learn, continue to grow, life gets better in one sense, and that is that you have a different perspective. It may be your circumstances won't get any better, but you're better able to deal with them. Let me give you an illustration of this, all right? I mentioned that I grew up with some baggage, all right? And we won't talk about what that baggage is, but it was overweight baggage, right? So I had to start from a different vantage point. I was married for 40 years to Gail, who started from a very healthy vantage point. She had a very healthy family and started from a good place. And she had less baggage than most people I've ever met.
She had the carry-on.
Yeah, she had carry-on baggage, right? She had baggage, but it was carry-on. But she, early in her life, determined that she wanted to be better. And so she started the journey of personal discovery and God discovery and giving to others early in life. And so she maintained this. When disaster struck and she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and she knew she was going to die, there was no anger. There was no resentment. There was no blaming God. Instead, I asked her, I said, "Are you angry?" She said, "Well, no." She said, "I've had 60 years of immaculate health and some people never get a day. I've had 40 years of a wonderful marriage and ministry." She talked about her children and her friends and the opportunities she's had. Should I be angry with God that all that only lasted 60 years and not 70 or 80? That just seems to me to be ungrateful.
Wow.
And I won't be ungrateful. And that's how she died. Now, that doesn't come just all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That kind of an attitude, when you face that kind of disadvantage and that kind of bad news in your life, you can only do that if you've lived this way, if you've taken the journey, if you've made the effort to become a person who's done the self-exploration and has done the growth, so that now here I am. I've seen God's character. I recognize who I am in His eyes. I want to be more like Him, and I trust Him. In other words, you begin to develop a biblical worldview. And when you do that, when disaster strikes, and it will, I'm sorry, but this is the bad news for life.
Fair is for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, fair is for 5-year-olds, and disaster is coming.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you need to know, right?
Yeah.
But you deal with that better when you face life this way, when you do this work now. Today is the day. Don't wait.
Wow.
Don't wait.
Oh my goodness.
Mike's out here spitting bars.
I know. When is the album coming out?
Yeah.
He's already got many. He wrote too many books already.
Wow.
I
That's
think-
a lot to think about. That's
Absolutely. Because that definitely sounds like like it was and it is a work of a lifetime.
It
And
was
it's-
for her.
And it's something that God invites each of us into.
She died at the age of 60. Had she lived to be 80, she would have had 20 more years of personal growth. That's just who she was. That's who I want to be, and that's who I think you guys are. And that's who you want to be, and it's who you can be. And it's who every viewer of this podcast can be as well. You can be that person who next week is going to be a better version of you today. You're right?
Or tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow can be a better version of you, of who you are right now. And then 20 years from now, and 40, and happiness is transitory. All right, it's
What do
going to
you
come
mean?
and go. Happiness comes and goes with circumstances, but joy is what we're after. Peace and joy, and that comes from doing this kind of work, being the healthiest version of you can possibly be. That's joy. And if you are seeking happiness, that's transitory, and it may come with you bought the new pair of shoes, right? But then they get old and you're out of money.
I know.
So now what do? You know, there's no more happiness for
Yeah.
me. And if happiness comes from a flat belly and you get to be 68 years old, it's not always flat anymore, right?
I wish.
Yikes.
So obviously
that
that's
one.
not.
Yeah.
So those things come and go. That changes. But what doesn't change is who you are in God's eyes.
Yeah.
And the purpose for your life. You live life on purpose. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "No man is fit to live until he's found something he would die for." Something bigger than you is bigger than you. It's got to be. And when you recognize that and you find that thing that's bigger than you and you do your growth work, that's where joy comes from, because you have a life of meaning and significance and value. And it's bigger than wearing the latest fashions
Sure.
or having a job with a lot of money.
There's something deeper there.
Yeah, there's something deeper and better.
Something that I think of with that is that if I was listening to you,
Which you're not right now, but go ahead.
sure, no.
If
But
I
it-
was
I'm sorry.
listening,
I was gonna say, if I was listening to like just a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
I feel like I would be half like, wow, like there is more to life. There's something deeper. There's
Right.
like, because I think what's so powerful is that you're not talking from theory. You're talking
Right.
from experience,
It's life experience,
of
yeah.
yourself, and then that you've seen in others. And
Yeah.
for me, that's very inspiring, because so many times those figures aren't there.
Yeah.
Whether maybe for some people they weren't there in their parents, they weren't there in their society.
That's right.
They definitely often aren't there in our politics and our pop culture.
It is what it is.
But to hear that would give me so much hope. But I think there would be another side of me that, and something that I wrestle with often, is kind of like a despair, like, where do I start? Like, that sounds amazing, but
Yeah.
but what does that look like on my day to day? Because things just feel the same, and
Yeah.
things just feel ordinary.
Well,
starts with the stool.
Yeah, it does. And basically,
Sit on
let's get back to something. I think
Okay.
that you're further along this journey than what you give yourself credit for. Because right now, you've already started preparation for a passion that you have. And that passion began with Jesus Christ, and you're preparing for a life of ministry. And so you're going to get some further education in order to enhance that. And as you're doing that, you're discovering things about yourself, about your view of God. You're challenging those things. And you're engaged in this process right here, right now. You're further along this journey than a lot of people my age are. And so even though it seems daunting in one sense, in another sense, it's not. Because the key is start the growth wherever you are and let it happen. Just let it happen. I mentioned earlier, the Apostle Paul talks about building on the foundation of Jesus Christ, right? He said, if you build on the foundation, I think this is one of the letters to the church in Corinth. If you build on the, and I may be wrong about that, but if you build on the foundation, which is Jesus, you're going to go through. And he said, now some people on that foundation build wonderful edifices that may be out of gold and diamonds and precious stones, and fine woods. And other people build with hay and with straw. Stray is
Stray is good.
obviously a combination
Yeah.
between hay and straw.
Make it short.
Obviously. And if you build with hay and straw, you're going to be tested in the fire and it's going to hurt. But if the foundation is Christ, you still go through. You go through to heaven, right? Now, the idea is to build with better building materials. Some of us are so broken because our negative past or a variety of other things. All we can manage right now is straw and hay.
I only got one piece of straw.
Okay, one piece of straw.
It's better than nothing.
But if the foundation is Jesus, you're going to heaven. So you're gonna. So now you start with that piece of straw and you build what you can, but you also then do the personal growth so that tomorrow you can build with balsa wood. And from there you go to pine, and from there you go to something else, and maybe some of us are so broken we'll never get to diamonds. That's all right, but what we build, and if the foundation is Jesus, we're going through. So what he's saying is that heaven is not dependent on what you build.
Wow.
Heaven is dependent upon the foundation, which is Jesus Christ. Build on the foundation. Build the best you can, because the better life is there if you build with better materials. Be the best version of you can be. Build and grow and become. And never stop that growth pattern, because that's going to mean better things that you're building, and that's where your satisfaction, your joy, and even your happiness comes from. So start the process now wherever you are. Don't be discouraged by it. Start the process and just take one step at a time. Don't. It's important to have the end goal in mind, but then don't be comparing yourself with how far you got to go.
That's important.
You take the next step today. Don't look at where I am versus that guy or this guy, because there's always going to be someone better than you.
Yeah.
Where am I? Where do I need to go? Let's take the next step. That's all I got. I got the next step. That's all I'm doing. I'm not worried about you. You may be 6 miles ahead of me, but I'm going to take the next step. That's all I got, man. And for tomorrow, I'll take the next step. And sometimes the days seem mundane.
Yes.
But if I keep doing the right things, if I keep growing in Christ, reading the Word, doing those things, worshiping Him, being obedient to Him, discovering who I am, surrounding myself with positive people, I'm going to make this journey. I'm going to find the things that I live my life for that are bigger than me, things that I would die for. That's who I want to be. And you take that journey one step at a time. Don't be discouraged, because all you got is today. So take the step you can take today. Who knows about tomorrow? You got today. Do that step today, and don't let the discouragement hit you.
That sounds like trusting the word of Jesus versus the word of myself and the word of culture.
Remember what Jesus does. Jesus, first of all, He's the one who formed you of the dust of the ground.
Yeah.
And He created you in His own image. And He declares you to be a person of infinite value and worth and dignity. That's who He says you are. He sees not you as you are, but as you are becoming under His tutelage, and as you will eventually be. So catching a glimpse of that person. C.S. Lewis said, if we could see the person that Jesus thinks us to be, that we would see a creature of such beauty and glory that we would be tempted to worship it. That's who Jesus sees you as. And we see ourselves as this broken mess. And even people who've got the big head, your picture's too small, dude. It's too small.
Hopefully they never see the big one.
Yeah.
Not a big head.
God sees you as somebody better than you've ever dared dream possible.
Yeah.
And that's who you're becoming. Trust His word. Trust His view of you. He sees that seed inside of you. That's who He sees. You're not trash. We've described ourselves as hot messes, and in one sense that is true of all of us, and in another sense it's a lie. It's a lie that Satan wants us to believe and to live with. Discard the lie. Discard it. You are a person of infinite worth and value.
And that takes us to the practical part of that, and just in summary, is, as you mentioned, examining the character of God.
Yeah.
And starting there.
Starting there.
With believing what He says about us.
Right.
Starting the journey, like you mentioned, and not comparing ourselves with others, but starting where we are, no matter where we are. Because there's
Make your
always
foundation
hope.
Jesus Christ. Start with a clean foundation. That's fine.
And then third, looking for the people who are already taking those steps.
That's right.
Building into them and allowing them to build into us.
That's what church is supposed to be.
Huh.
We surround ourselves with people who are on the same journey, on the same path. Some are further ahead, some are further behind, doesn't matter. We're not comparing with each other. We're loving each other and helping each other along that same path, that same journey. And as we do this, we combine our efforts and help people others who don't know about Jesus along the way. We're going to make a difference in our community. That's church. That's what we're supposed to be. That's where we're going in our lives. And even within the church, we're going to see people who are more severely broken than others.
Sure.
So we find the people who are really committed, who have found growth, and we spend a lot of time with them while not neglecting these others, because we need to help them too. But when it comes to finding a life partner or a best friend forever,
Or
you know,
beef.
Or beef.
yeah, or beef, we make the list of the non-negotiables. And then if I'm looking for a life partner and someone I find, they got this on the non-negotiables and they don't possess this, they can still be a good friend, but they're not going to be my life partner. Now, you know, and it's important that we have the list. The list, if you're looking for perfection, well, good luck with that, because if someone else is looking for perfection, you're not going to be chosen either. Right? Okay. So, but we want to find someone who has the same values on the same journey of growth that we are.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah.
They're growing, I'm growing, we're trying to get to the same place.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mike. Do you have anything you want to say before we close, Sadia or Leo?
I've just been here for comic relief. That's what I've been here
Oh,
for.
I disagree. Because you have a unique journey. Your journey is different than this guy's or
Very
mine.
true.
And it's a very unique journey. You've been open about that. And yet,
Refer back to episode 1.
yeah. And yet what I see in you is a woman of dignity and beauty who is growing in Jesus. And by beauty, you know, because I'm kind of a substitute father figure for you, right?
Very true. So, background story. There's a bug here.
Yeah.
Mike is my substitute father.
That's right.
He is my father.
I will claim you any day of the week.
Yes, thank you.
All right. But so when I talk about beauty, it's not just the exteriors for you. This is a growth inside, and we're all broken messes. But I see beauty in you. I see a beautiful child of God with a heart for people and a heart for worship and a heart for others. That's what I see in you. So don't be hard on yourself.
Let's all cry together.
Let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
This is not that kind of party.
Okay.
Hold elbows. 'Cause
Hold
Yeah, that's right.
elbows.
Elbows. It's COVID, right?
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
that's a beautiful
Wow.
place to end Spaces for this week, guys.
Keep in mind,
yes.
we're all going through this journey together.
Yes.
Everybody is messed up.
Every single person is messed up, even
Me.
if they look you.
I got a lot of education. I'm still messed up.
Yeah, I got less education, but we're all going through this journey together. If you believe, if you don't believe, if you're listening just because you're our friend, or just because I don't know why you're
You
listening.
stumbled
Yeah,
upon
which
it on your
by
suggested-
accident.
We're mildly entertaining
You
and
thought this
entertaining.
maybe was like some astronaut thing or something. I don't know, but either way, we're all going through a similar journey, different, but we're all going through a journey, and we're going through it together. And it's not going to be easy, but we're here to create that space so that you guys can create that space for others. So go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Could have ended better than that.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next time.
All right, bye
All
guys.
right, bye.
Good closure.
Yes.
And cut.
Cut.